Last night was so good. How many of you were there? A few of you? I just was like, I don't even know how to describe it. I was like, yes. That's probably the best way to describe it. It was so good. I just was pretty pumped about it. We're talking about faith and freedom. It was just good stuff. I had to look something up here real quick, and then we'll get rolling. How are you? Good to see you. Yeah. A lot is taking place. A lot of changes are taking place. We're still waiting for the county to see if we can get Empower services into this building, which is everything from drug rehabilitation to counseling to family counseling, all that. We'd like to see if we could do that, maybe 2.5 days a week here, since the building is here, right? So it'd be good to have that here in this county and get that going. Come on in. And but then we also have other things that we'll be talking about probably in May at different meetings for small groups that will be breaking out either here in people's homes that we really want to get everybody informed of. Because I think having a community, right, or, sometimes we want to be a part of a group that has to deal with a subject. It's like, I don't want to sit in a Bible study talking about Moses. I want to deal with such and such. I need to understand anorexia or whatever. And so when we deal with the small groups, we'll be doing that at Word of Life, and we'll be training the trainers. But there is really a big difference between a Bible study and a therapeutic group, right? And sometimes it gets messy and it gets dicey. And so, if you're wanting to tap into something, sometimes what happens is people go from group to group trying to find that thing, but they can't find it because it's under the wrong label or it's under the wrong guise. And so we're going to be talking about that too. I'm hoping to rerun the pornography class that we had here and some other things that'll make that available too. So I'm just letting you know things are coming, and we're excited about it. So tonight we are going to jump into talking about fight, flight, or freeze. And I got some different things we're going to go over. We talked a little bit about this, but I want to go into it a little bit deeper, because sometimes if we're not in a full-fledged panic attack or something that's so intense that we're like, yep, I'm definitely in all of these or one of these or whatever, if we've got that kind of feeling like it's not, we don't have it, how do I say it? It's that top layer that says, I'm scared. You can experience each one of these, and it'll give you the sensation that you're scared, right? And so we'll say, I have anxiety right now. Well, you're going to be in one of these, or aspects of all three when you have anxiety. But that doesn't mean necessarily that you are understanding all the layers underneath it or the reactions. And I want to go over some of those. We did a little bit last week, but I want to go into it a little bit deeper as far as what can come out of flight, for instance. Most people will say, what does it mean to be in a flight mode? Well, it means you're going to run, right? We're going to get out of here. We're going to run. What else would it mean to be in flight mode? Escape. Yeah. What's another one? What are we doing when we're on the run? Yeah, you can hide. Some of these apply to the other ones, but hiding. What's another one when you're in flight mode? Flying, like you're lying? Okay. Anybody else? We're talking about fight, flight, or freeze. You're definitely, but all of these are anxiety, so we can write that. That'll go all the way across. And anxiety is kind of like when you talk about autism. Autism is a spectrum. That it's like you're over here and most people wouldn't even know you have anything. But when you're way over here, you can be in your own world. And people can talk to you and you are not aware that they're talking to you there. But there's a whole spectrum in between. It's the same thing with flight, fight, or freeze. You can be in a spectrum of flight. Sometimes people can't see that you're on the run. And other times it's like it's really obvious you're on the run. But there's a spectrum of how that goes. What's another one? When you mode? Confused? So far, this doesn't sound like a fun time. The other one, what did I have? I had the feeling of bolting. It's a sensation. That sensation's different than escape or escape. To escape, you have to have a plan, right? If I'm going to escape this room, that means I better think through how I'm going to get out. Where when something happens and you just bolt, you didn't think anything through. And what happens with anxiety, if somebody all of a sudden comes around the corner and goes, ah, you're like, you didn't think, okay, now I'm going to do this with my hands. Now I'm going to do this, or whatever it is your reaction is. You're not thinking. It's just a bolting feeling. It's just like a jar that happens, and your body will respond. But when you're in escape mode, to escape means, I got to get out of here. How am I going to do this? And at that point, you'll lie to get out. You'll push back. You can be in the thing of like, stay away from me. There's all kinds of different ways to escape. Now, what does fight mode look like? When anxiety hits you and you go into fight mode, what does it look like? I'm going to write argumentative while you're thinking. What else? Yep. Then there's passive aggressive and aggressive. Passive aggressive and aggressive. There's a big difference. There's similarities, but they're different. If I'm going to be passive aggressive, that means my passive side is out front, but my aggressive side's in behind where you can't see it. But it's operating. There's a passive thing, and you're like, I just feel like something's wrong here. I just can't put my finger on it. But there's a real aggressive thing coming against you, whether it be manipulative, whether it be, like I said, lying or argumentative or whatever in the backside of it. Passive aggressive, sometimes it's harder to get a hold of. It's like a slippery fish. When you go to grab it, it'll just slip right out of your hands. And it's like, but I know something's wrong. But I know they're doing something, but you just can't get a hold of it. Where aggressive is the punch in the face, right? That's just punch in the face. Now, we can be aggressive with our words. And a lot of times people will tell me this, that they would rather take a punch in the face than have somebody be aggressive with their words toward them. Just punch me in the face and get it over with. I'd rather have that than emotional abuse that goes on and on and on. So aggressive is that thing that, I'm trying to get some type of control here because I feel anxious, and to the level of my anxiety or the level of my insecurity, I will need to take control. So however high that level is the sensation's going to be like, I gotta take control in this moment. There's got to be something I can do, and sometimes we'll say very hurtful things when it comes to the fight mode. What about freeze? What do you see in freeze? Memory loss, yep. 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 Stuck. Thoughtless. Like you can't get thoughts to move. Speechless. Yeah, I just put feelingless in some things. just out. You're out of feelings. Memory loss, isolation, paranoid, stuck, thoughtless, speechless. I could have put feelingless. There's something to the freeze that says it's too much for the brain, whatever it is going on. Now, so you take a look at the deer in the headlight. That's that when they're on the side of the road and they're doing the debating thing. You're coming up and you're like, there's a deer. You start to slow down, but they're like, I don't know, should I go up or not? You know, they have that thing, and you're just like, no, don't do it. Don't do it, you know, and you're slowing down. And then they'll debate sometimes and just go right across the road. Or they'll go, maybe I'll turn around and go back the other way. Because they don't have the processor that says, maybe I'll just wait for you to pass. I mean, go ahead and pass, and then I'll cross. No, they're feeling, they're the one, not the predator. They're the ones always being hunted. So that's where the problem comes in. They're in this mode already, because their postures as victims, they're the ones hunted, and they know it. So all their training is about being hunted, you know, all of that type of stuff. So here with the freeze is when they actually do commit to come up on the road, and you come up on them, and all of a sudden, right, that's the deer in the headlight look. It's like, and they're stuck there. Literally what they've proven is their brain stops processing. There's nothing there. It's just, yeah. You're just like, you know. But then it's too late, right? Because your processor does that. So here, flight, you can be thinking way too much. We got to get out of here. You understand? I mean, this is how it's all going to fall apart if we don't get out now. I mean, I got to solve this. They're going to take the house. You know, it's in this constant thing of like, run, go, 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 go. And fight is in that thing of like, you're not seeing your way out, so I'm going to win. That's the only way I can survive this. And I'll survive it if I can, but if I die trying, then oh well. Here I am. I'm in fight mode. And so freeze is that part that's the most frustrating, is it'll cause you to be stuck in a thought, stuck on a concept, stuck where you're just like, I don't know. And it's a form of shock to stay in freeze, where you're walking around like, I don't know. And what happens with all three of these that we need to understand is that if you've lived in any of them, and usually if you're in one, you can bounce back and forth to the others. If you've lived in them for any amount of time, there's a certain amount of brain damage that takes place. Because our brain is not meant to be adrenalized to that level. What did you say? Yes. Yeah. You can be stuck. You can be stuck definitely in freeze, but you can be stuck in flight mode. All you have to do is do meth for a couple weeks. Right? And then no, don't. It isn't like your body goes, oh, I guess we're not doing this now. No, it keeps going in the inside, right? And this is why a lot of times it'll burn up your sugar. And so you'll be like, I've been a week, 2 weeks off of it. Why am I just at such a low as far as blood sugar? And so that's why people drink mango juice, they'll drink orange juice. They're just like, I gotta have sugar. That's because they're stuck in flight mode. You can get stuck in flight mode by being stuck in ketosis. If you ever do some of the diets where we're trying to get ketosis going, right? Well, some people's bodies will get stuck in it, and it won't stop. They won't stop dropping weight. And it's like the body interprets it like, I guess we're dying. And so they'll stay in this flight mode. Fight, you can be stuck in this argumentative thing for many different reasons: combative, controlling, passive aggressive. All of these also can be a trained behavior, a behavior that tells you how to deal with situations. Maybe all you saw when you were growing up was arguments. That's how people settled things but never really did. But that's what we do. We just argue. What's the point of arguing if somebody isn't going to win? Right? It's best if we're going to have an altercation, that we're going to do it with a little bit of aggravation, knowing that I want you to win and you should want me to win. So let's have a win-win. Right? But that's not normally why we go into fight. We go into like, I can't lose. I got to win. Right? And I'm going to die trying. And so we'll get really controlling. All of these you can protect all of these with lies or denial. Denial, you really have to lie to yourself. No, it's not as bad as what you're saying. No, I don't really have a problem, or whatever it is. We'll protect ourselves with that. Or lying to someone else. Now, in fight mode, there's something that I didn't write here, and it's called triangulation. I'm drawing it kind of small because I took up too much room. I miscalculated. Here's a triangle. I purposely am drawing it upside down because that's the sign of the goat's head. And I think triangulation represents the devil, and the devil represents triangulation. So we're going to give it the goat's head feel. So the triangle says, if it's Shaylee and me, where I got to feel safe, but I don't know what to do with you. So I'll get with Shaylee, and I'll be like, Shaylee, I don't really know her, and she makes me kind of uncomfortable. Yeah, I remember the time she did, but yeah, I know. But let's just try to be nice to her. But I have this sensation that we're the 2 points, right? We don't know what to do at this point. And if I want to manipulate, if I want to get something done, I just keep working this relationship, right? Because you'll have my back. If I want to come against her, I know we're going to do this thing together. We're going to come against this point together. It's us. Me and you against. But then what happens is if I find out, oh, snap, you have boundaries and you're not falling for it, no, crud. Maybe I'll go over here and find out what she is doing, right? So behind your back, then I'll come over here and I'll find out what she's doing. Then I'll be like, well, yeah, Shaylee's not always right. There's little phrases you throw in there, but it's a way of putting her into question. And I'm testing to see where you at. Because I need to know how to run this triangle. So in one moment, I'm with her, and the next moment, I'm with her. And the 2 other points never know who I'm going to be with. And if they try to confront it, it never works out. It's very wicked, very wicked. That's why I gave it the goat's head. A sign of Satan. Because where there is strife, there dwelleth every evil and wicked thing. This is that one that's really difficult. Once you get a triangle going, he said and she said, but I never said, kind of stuff. Gaslighting's another one that you can get going. Projecting problems can play a part of the triangle, where if we're in any one of these and we're backed into a corner, especially flight or fight, we will project onto other people that it's their fault, right? What I'm feeling is your fault, and this is why. What I did, my poor behavior, is your fault, and this is why. It's like you put the projector on them, so all the attention's on them, and it's like, well, I would have never did such and such if you wouldn't have. Like one guy told me, I would have never slept with the neighbor, right? I wouldn't have done that if my wife would have been nicer to me. Or dressed nicer, or did her hair better. I mean, you can pull any weird excuse out, and it's like, actually the reason that we do things is because we lost control or we wanted to. We don't get to come outside of that. Now, they can have extremely poor behavior, but their poor behavior can't make me have a poor behavior. Like, you want to turn into an axe murderer, it doesn't make me one. I would have never killed the neighbor, except for, I saw you killing, so I thought, well, that's my thing. I made a choice for me, so we can never project it on somebody else. We either lost control or we wanted to. And one of the rules to things is we're 100% responsible for our own behaviors. It's a hard thing to teach little kids that, right? Well, they took my truck. He punched me in the face. This little girl pinched me or whatever, so that's why I decked her. Well, okay, that was her poor behavior, and I'm not saying to not protect yourself in certain situations, but what I am saying is we can't project it as like all of my actions you were responsible for. No, all my actions I'm responsible for, even if you have a poor behavior. Ooh, it's hard. It's hard to live that, right? That's why we'll say, well, they took that first, or I wouldn't have done this if he wouldn't have done that. And you'll hear that when people are dealing with people in authority. Well, I wouldn't have pulled out my gun except the officer stood up in my face. Actually, you don't belong pulling out your gun. Right? And why did he pull you over to begin with? Why do you have to run a background? I mean, we could go through a whole thing. But we can project it's the other person. They're the ones triggering me. They're the one. You can be just like out of your mind. I still have to have good behavior. Because these are my behaviors. You don't get to direct my behaviors. Part of codependency, part of being in bad relationships or around the wrong people, if we have that as an excuse, it'll be like, well, only reason I was using it is I was around those guys or these girls or whatever. That's why I used. No, you used because you lost control or you wanted to. That's why we did it. We can't project onto those other people, even if they have the poor behavior. But you get somebody in flight or fight, man, excuses will come out. And remember, you can have an excuse or you can make an excuse. Right? If I break my leg, I call in, I'm not going to work tomorrow. I actually have an excuse. But if I make an excuse, that means I got to take time to conjure this up. It's going to take some time for me to work kind of into that. Well, when you get backed into a corner and you just want to fly out of a place, stuff will come out of your mouth. You're like, wow, I can't believe I just told that person an absolute lie. Now I'm going to have a cover lie for that lie. And then they're probably going to ask me next week, I'll have to write down what I lied because then I have to get it exact. I mean, it just starts the thing. But if you're in anxiety and you're backed in a corner, it'll come out like that. It'll just right away. Usually when we freeze, though, we lose speech. When we freeze, we have nothing to say. And sometimes when we freeze, it prevents us from actually having a good boundary or saying something that, would have helped us out in the situation. We're just stuck. It's like, right? I've described before going rabbit hunting with my dad. And I wasn't there actually shooting the rabbits because I was a little kid, but, he'd give me stuff to carry. And so you're carrying bullets or whatever just to participate. And I love animals, right? I also know how to butcher them at the same time. I mean, I was raised on a farm. That's where meat comes from. But when you're attached to something, that's not the ones that it would be so easy to do. And as I've gotten older, I mean, if I had to do it to survive, I'd do it, but I don't like it. I don't like doing that. So as a kid, when the dog would go out, chase the rabbit, that rabbit would be all over the place, looking all over, whatever. And my dad would not shoot the rabbit during that time. But what happens is they'll dart, and all of a sudden they'll stop, just like the deer in the headlight. And that's when he'd shoot him. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, run! Because it's like, okay, I'm helping my dad, spending time with him, but at the same time, I don't want the rabbit. I want the rabbit to get away, right? Same way I used to go out and, chase the deer. What do you call that again? Moving deer through the forest, like hitting sticks, and you're doing all that. And it was like, okay, and then you could hear the gunshot, and you're like, somebody go, got him, or whatever, and you're like, they got it. And you're all excited, and you come, and as a little kid, I'd be like, aw. So I found a way to still eat the meat, but still it was like, well, I didn't want you to actually get them, But at the same time, there's something about that freeze where what it is, especially like they say in rabbits, can have a heart attack just when running around like that because they're high adrenal beings, right? So when we train our body to be high adrenalized, we can have a heart attack. But we can also, adrenaline will shut down thought or get you stuck on one thought. Adrenaline will just be like, you're my problem. You can't see anything else, but you're like, and you'll focus on that one thing. Adrenaline will also cause your brain, your cingulate in your brain to get stuck. You get adrenaline, and you're like, I have to do this. I have to do this. And people are like, no, come over here. And you're like, no, I have to. And you'll just get stuck on that. It's an overshooting of the brain, and it'll cause the freeze. Now, think about doing that, having a panic attack or staying in a state of anxiety that's high. Meth will cause you to have that same kind of sensation, high adrenaline. You're burning up your little adrenal glands that sit on your kidneys, and you're doing that, it actually causes memory loss or brain damage. We've talked about how it can give you dyslexia, things like that. Sometimes when there's a high anxiety situation and the mom is pregnant and she gives birth to that child can have stomach issues, digestive problems, constipation, all kinds of different things, and they think it's totally separate from what's gone on. No, there was way too much adrenaline that went into the body of that baby also. And then it reset, and it takes you a while to get that baby past colic or whatever it is. So we're looking at these because to identify when you're in counseling or when you're trying to work through something and you're like, I just think I have anxiety. Okay, well, a lot of times people will just grab that thought and they'll go, anxiety, so it's fear. Okay, yeah, that's what I'm going through. Okay, but which one? And if you have anxiety, are you doing any of these things? See, most of the time we don't look at that. We'll just be up here. I just feel like running. I just feel like fighting something. Or, I actually shouldn't say most of the time. Most of the time, people don't understand these three things, so they'll just say, I'm scared. I feel afraid. I'm panicky. And we'll misuse the terms panic attack or things like that. I'm having a panic attack. Actually, when you have a panic attack, you'll know it because it takes, you're gone. You're not going to be able to function at that moment. Your heart rate is up. You feel like you're having a heart attack. It isn't like I have anxiety. See, that's a low level of the same thing. But when it gets higher and higher, your body will actually go into a panic where the insides are like this. Your chest will go tight. You'll feel sick to your stomach. Some people vomit, headaches, everything instantly. And if you get caught in that, you'll get caught in the cycle where it's just like doing this in your brain and you won't be able to move. A lot of people end up in the ER thinking they're having a heart attack at that time, and people will go, oh, it's just a panic attack. Well, the person experiencing, the panic attack will be like, just a panic attack? Are you kidding me? I thought I was dying. And here's the part that's wild about it, is when you're in this, you're experiencing something really big, and when you come out of it, you're fine. And it's the weirdest sensation. Right, you're like, I'm dying, I can't breathe. You could be in a fetal position, you just can't get air. It feels like everyone's just after you. Crazy thoughts are going through your mind. You can hurt in your body, everything like that. But when it passes, all those symptoms are gone. And then people will look at you and go, you're just making up stuff. You're just having an excuse. You're just saying you were panicking and you weren't. You don't even have panic disorder. I don't know if anybody here has experienced that. I've experienced it. Yeah, you have? Where they're like, come on now. It's a disability where it's just like, it will wipe you out. And panic disorder sets in many times before using drugs or alcohol, but definitely after. When you start to come off of things, there's a anxiety, there's a vibration inside. And if we don't deal with it, we can start entering these types of emotions. Now, take the escape, the word escape, when you're getting in flight mode. You can be at a low degree of escape and be making plans to how to get out of going to work, how to not have to face the school, how to, I got to call that person about that bill. How can I get out of that? Because the anxiety is just like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And it will scream in the inside of you, I can't do it. And someone else who's not experiencing that will be like, just do it. Right? But they're not inside your head. So it's easy for them to say, but to the person who's experiencing it, they're not experiencing any of that. So it's easy advice to be like, well, this is what you need to do. You just need to go confront that. No, it doesn't work that way. You're literally like this inside. And it can take away any feelings of safety, and you can move on over to freeze and just be stuck and just disassociate from everything. It's a tough spot to be in. I want to bring it up tonight because whether you're experiencing it at a high level or a low level where it's just a vibration where you're feeling like, I'm a little anxious, it's something to grab a hold of and deal with, because it's not something we play with to have panic disorder or to be in anxiety in any way. This is why the Bible says be anxious for nothing. No thing is the word nothing. So you can read a scripture like that and go, yep, that's what God wants. So just do that. Just go on, do it. Well, that's the command so that we've got something to head toward, right? But if you've had anxiety of any sort for any amount of time, you don't just read a scripture like that and go, okay, I'll do that, and I'll just be over with. No, you just know it's the goal, but how are you going to get there? That's the in-between. Like, this is big picture. Be anxious for no thing, right? But you have a starting point, and the starting point might look like this with all these behaviors following. So the reason we bring up the behaviors, which I could have 3 boards up here and just keep lining them up, right? The reason we look at it is because we think we have an anxiety issue. We don't see many times how bad it is because we're not seeing our behaviors. We don't know that we're part of triangulation. Like, how did I get sucked in to this triangle? I got to get out of it. Or we don't know that we're being passive aggressive. We'll know sometimes we're being aggressive once it's too late. That becomes obvious or whatever. Sometimes we don't think we're isolating when we are. That's why it gets so annoying when somebody says you're isolating. You're like, no, I'm not. I just needed time by myself. And we're like mad about it. Well, don't get so mad then if you're not isolating. Just be like, no, I just took a couple days off. I'll be going back to work at this time or whatever. That's different than be like, don't tell me I'm isolating. No, you are. That's why you're not answering your phone. There's something with it. Paranoid is in that freeze section. It's also in the flight and fight, because paranoia runs scenarios. How many of you are scenario runners? What I mean by that is something happens, you go to sleep at night, and you're like, I'm going to have to deal with that tomorrow. And you're running scenarios. Well, if he says this, then I'll say that. No. If it doesn't go that way, then it'll probably go this way. And then if they say that, I'll say this, right? And it's running things that probably will not happen. You can take all kinds of time to get ready to meet every one of those scenarios, and none of those will happen. It's the craziest thing. I've done it. And you're like, you're all prepared, and now something totally different comes up. And you're like, because it's a way of saying, I got to get ready because I have a fear this isn't going to go right. So I better get ahead of this thing. So can you see how addiction aggravates this? It's you want to talk about gaslighting. It's like, just light the match there, hit some gas on that, and it just blows it up. And it'll cause you to be on the run. It'll cause you to turn and fight for the wrong thing, the wrong way, the wrong time. Be really hurtful to yourself and others when you're in that fight mode. And freeze will cause you to be like, I always say, you're in the intersection and you can't shift. You're in neutral. Everybody's beeping the horn, move out of the way. And you're like stuck in the intersection. Eventually they call the police to have you removed from that area because people got to get moving, right? But that's what freeze will do. It'll actually cause you to be in that spot. Now, I put thoughtless and speechless. Have you ever been so, like somebody confronted you or something happened where you had all kinds of things to say and now you have nothing to say at all? You even ran scenarios and now you're like, well, and you'll look in your brain like the files are empty. There's like nothing there. I have nothing, right? It's a really creepy kind of feeling almost when it happens. But that's that whole feeling of like I'm up against the wall. There is nothing I can say at this point that will make any sense. I have nothing. I have no anything. So that can happen in the freeze. Another one that can happen that I don't have up here in the fight is big announcements. So a lot of times when a person's backed in a corner, like you got a really nice dog, maybe it's a golden retriever, and the kid's got it backed in the corner, poking it. That dog will be like, it'll just move, right? Kid keeps poking it, it'll give a little tooth out the side. Ever see a dog do that? They're like knock it, you know? And they'll keep poking, and all of a sudden, you'll hear that, right? It's a warning. There's all these warnings that are going out, but you poke that dog long enough, it will bite you, right? Or become aggressive. Now we have to remember when we do that with the anxiety, like, let me trigger it, let me touch it, let me trigger it some more, you're going to bite somebody. The nicest person can go into fight mode, and when we do, a lot of times we don't want to get physical, so we punch someone in the face with our words. I call it a punch in the face. Or some will say, that was a gut punch, right? Sometimes I'll say, that was an uppercut. You didn't see it coming, and just, and knocks you out, right? And those kinds of announcements, it's like, that's fine, we're getting a divorce. What? I was just trying to decide who's paying for the car this month. But you're backed in a corner, and it's like, no, that's it, we're getting a divorce. It's a big lever. It's the biggest thing you can find. What do I got? Okay, and you pull that, and you pull it down, so it's supposed to shock the other person, and they're like, no, and it says, I took control, and there's nothing you can say about this now, right? And I'm going to hurt you so that we can change the subject. Now it's about divorce. It's not about paying the car payment. Ever been in that spot? I'm sure you've had it done to you, but have you ever done it? Or it's a big announcement. I've had it can be a big announcement. I've had it. I have had about enough. Well, what that says to the other person is like, this is volatile now. We don't know. I guess we're done. I guess something is going to happen horrible because there was a big announcement. That comes in that fight mode. That's a punch in the face. You didn't see that one coming. It's called dirty fighting techniques. I just felt the Lord told me to talk about this, that people were going to be here tonight, that either you're having some of this happen to you, around you, or you're participating out of your own anxiety. Now you get a house full of fearful people, this is what you're going to see. One person might be in the fight mode, another person might be in fight mode, and the other person's not saying anything at all. But anxiety is at the base. And it's important that we understand this, because if we don't understand this, it's rare that a person will, when it comes to addiction of any sort, I don't care, pornography, reading too many books, whatever it isn't like you get up in the morning very peaceful and be like, yep, today's a good day, I'm going to go get high on heroin. It's a plan. And I plan to spend this much money, and this is what I'm going to do. And you kids need anything? I'm going to town, get my stuff. I mean, we don't make plans like that. It's usually high anxiety and very hidden. It's very pacey. It's very uptight. We got anxiety, and it's ramping. There's something at the base of that anxiety. And if we're feeling like I need an escape right now, escape. I need to make a plan. I got to figure this out. I got to lie to this person so that I can make a way to get out and get what I need. It's anxiety. So we'll blame it on heroin, right? Heroin's chemicals. Meth is chemicals. Other things are herbs. Right? And when you look at them, you're like, how does this plant have that much power over my life? It's a plant, right? Well, it doesn't. It's these emotions that drive, and all that is a thing that we're using, right? A chemical that we're using. But the base, this is actually more of the problem than the chemical itself. And you would think, I think it's the craziest thing when you study the body. As a health consultant, we had to do a whole section on, chemicals in the body. I mean, everything from, spraying for weeds and people walking through the grass afterwards. You're absorbing the chemicals into your body, things like that go on with us. And it's the craziest thing, though. The brain will say, what? I can't process this when a chemical comes in or too much of something comes into the body. I can't process this. Even I always use Cheetos because Cheetos are not a real food, right? So they're chemically based. And so that comes in, you would think your body would go, no, and just start throwing up. Right? Isn't that weird that our bodies are like, yeah, I'll try to digest that. And then as soon as it does, the very thing that you're not supposed to have, you'll crave. Why? Why would your body betray us like that? They're like, I think I need poison right now. So if you're gluten intolerant, guess what you will crave? Gluten. Isn't that weird? If you're not supposed to have caffeine because your system is full of anxiety, which, by the way, caffeine and anxiety do never go together. But as you do that, it'll be like, no, I need a cup of coffee right now. Why? Because I'm nervous. Well, that'll help. But it's your brain will interpret what it thinks you need, but it's not even helping you. And so there's something about our body being touched by sin. I really believe this. The Bible says it's been touched by sin and it becomes an enemy to the cross. If you don't sanctify what's on the inside so that it can take over what's going on with the body will be like, yeah, I think about just drinking some gasoline right now, you know. I mean, and it is strange how each person, you don't have to have an addiction problem to have this, but each person has some chemical base of craving. How many of you like the smell of mufflers? Gasoline. Yeah, me too. Me too. And you were back there? Yeah. Yeah. So it's really not good for us at all. Not good. If you're going to huff something, that'll kill you in a heartbeat. But at the same time, why? Right? And the next person will have a certain chemical over here that'll be like, I don't know why, but I just really like the smell of paint. You know, and it's no good for our body at all, but somehow the body craves it. So there's something chemically that's been set up through the generations that says, here's my bend. And what they're doing now is they're studying DNA and they're studying molecular energy in cells. And so if a parent had a craving toward a certain thing or whatever, many times we're born with that craving. We don't know it until all of a sudden we're like, oh, that muffler smells good. Like, if my husband, if I could invent an aftershave that he would wear, it would smell like a snowmobile. I like when he walks in the house and he's been snowmobiling, I'm just like, hey, what's up? I mean, is it good? You know, I mean, and you got all these wonderful smells, you know, that they have, Old Spice or whatever, you know. And those are okay. Those are okay, but there's something about how my brain is trained, like motorcycle exhaust, you know. It's just like, yeah. I'm just saying. Yeah, yeah. So, but isn't it interesting? So it's brain training. It's what chemicals you've been around and what you've experienced. We need to know that, right? So then here, anxiety is here saying, I need my need met. And so your body will actually crave something down that same bend. So this is what they've proven. Alcohol, at its base, one sip of alcohol, it's toxic to the brain. It isn't like, well, there's some people who can handle their liquor. Nobody can handle liquor because it has alcohol in it, and alcohol kills your brain cells instantly. It's toxic to the brain. Your brain, just like Cheetos, does not know how to interpret that. So, but people who usually crave like a smell like gasoline can get hooked on alcohol really easy. And they're starting to see those components, how it comes together. There's a very physiological side to it. It's like, how does that work? So there's more to us than we know. There's like secret things that we don't pay attention to, or we just think, well, I started drinking, I don't know why. Well, there's more to it. We can't put all the blame there. There's just a bend. And the Bible talks about iniquity. And the word iniquity in the Greek means a bend toward. Like you're bent toward sin. You're bent toward a certain thing, a way of harming yourself, or there's a bend toward it. And so that's really interesting. Now, anxiety will drive you to the bend. First, you'll feel afraid, and nobody was meant to feel that fear. When they walked in the cool of the day with God the Father, Adam and Eve, they didn't feel fear. They felt love. So there was nothing for their flesh to be like, I got to bend toward. They didn't need anything. All their needs were met. And then sin hit us and subtracted from us. And the more we're subtracted from, the more we're constantly feeling like, I need something. And so anxiety says, I need something. And have you ever had someone say, I can see that you're afraid. What do you need? And what's our answer? I don't know. We'll say that a lot. Well, do you need me to hold you? Do you want me to hold your hand? Can I pray with you? I don't know. I don't know. Most of the time, people cannot interpret what's going on with that anxiety. So it will cause us to have that feeling of reaction. So this is all reactive stuff to the anxiety. And in the end, it causes these three things. But our reaction or our follow-through to fulfill these three things are all right here. And there's long lists of things that we do. And so if we just focus on the anxiety and we want that to stop, well, we can go and they'll give us a certain medication that'll help calm that anxiety down. Did that stop it? No, it calmed down your receptors so you could think a little bit better. But you're still going to have these behaviors because underneath it all, there's still that anxiety. So fight begs for whatever drug your body craves for to make it easier for you to win the fight. So for some people, they're feeling really anxious, so they'll drink a half a bottle of wine. And suddenly they're pretty powerful. Right? You start out powerful as long as you're on the high, but then when you come down, you're just like drunk. But as you're up on that high and your body's experiencing brain cells dying and interpreting like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. You're still on that high enough that if you're going to argue, you're there to win it. If you're going to be combative, it means there's nothing anyone can say to you. You're going to come back at them with whatever. You're going to be more controlling in that. But it takes half a bottle of wine or a few shots of whiskey to do that, right? That's that thing that says, I am full of anxiety, so now I've got to medicate it so that I can become strong enough to fight. What about flight? Sometimes we know we want to run, but we're not brave enough to do it until we do something stupid. Sometimes it takes a couple beers to run. Sometimes it'll take going and just doing something wild and crazy because you're already feeling anxiety. We'll go to an even scarier place. We'll go to the trap house. We'll go somewhere where people could hurt us. Yeah, because I'm afraid. And so this is going to help. That's how the brain thinks. It's like, yeah, that was a real brainiac idea. We do that. Freeze is like, if I'm stuck here, then I better shut me up. So a lot of times, if you're stuck in freeze mode, you're going to want to shut this down. You're going to want to use to a place of whatever so that you're not hearing from that anxiety at all. I just need to pass out. I just need to do something. I've seen people in my office talking about Cbd oil and just, you're supposed to take a couple drops under the tongue and suddenly a $75 bottle lasted a day, All right. CBD, by the way, is something your body produces. And so if you're suffering fibromyalgia and things like that, usually if they test, you don't have enough of that in your system to help protect your nerve endings, and so you feel pain all over. So some CBD oil isn't straight CBD, though. If you look in the really fine print, there's pot involved in there, right? So that creates a whole nother thing, and people will be like, well, it relaxed me some, so I need more. And anytime something is too, like you're overdoing even something that's a good vitamin thing or whatever, it's too much. Your body needs it in increments. And but we'll do those kinds of things. Why? Because we're on the run. We're ready to fight, or we're frozen. But we'll be like, the addictions bother me right now. That's what's happening. No. Anxiety's bothering you right now. No, I just have this real craving. No, let's check where you're at in the anxiety. Whenever I've done that with a person before, when they're debating using, their anxiety is always through the roof. But they're so used to living in it, they're like, no, I think I'm pretty good. And it's like, I wouldn't trade places with you. You are like high on anxiety. You are like adrenaline queen right now. It's like, and so, but the measurement is usually off. It's like, no, it was a pretty good day. It was a pretty good day today. Compared to what? Were you pacing? Were you overeating? Were you going without food? Were you buying stuff you shouldn't buy? See, these are all impulse things that happen out of anxiety. You can have anxiety and think you're just bored. This is what people will say a lot when they're ready to fight, or even freeze. But mostly these first two, it'll be like, I'm just so bored. So bored. And they're restless, right? No, but there's something there that's like, I'm anxious and I need to be doing something. I'm bored. Well, what are you saying? This is the only way I can get the anxiety out of me. I'm trying to get it out of me. Because anxiousness or adrenaline stores in your muscles. So it hits you, it'll tighten your chest, it'll tighten your stomach, and it'll tighten the neck here. Some people get it down the back of their calves. If something's going to happen, it's usually my calves. It's really interesting. I don't know what it is, but I'll just get a knot in there. And then I'm like, I better pay attention. What's going on with me? Either I sat wrong, slept wrong, or there's something bugging me that I'm not quite aware of right now. Self-awareness is power. It's power. To find out after the fact, I just wasn't aware. And then I end up using and everything. Well, now I'm aware. Looking back, I'm aware now. Well, hindsight's great, but it's better if we have the sight ahead of time. And so part of getting a hold of addiction or trauma driving us to addiction is to be able to self-assess ahead of time and look into it. So I want to ask you a question. Where in the Richter scale of anxiety are you tonight? Where are you tonight? Just totally peaceful? Is there something fluttering in the background? You're worrying about finances? Check yourself. Like, no, I'm here to learn. Yes, but in the background, is there a flutter about finances, about your children, about where you're going to be, about future? Check yourself. Because it'll be in the background more than it'll be up front, because if it was up front, you'd be having a panic attack right now. Right? It'd be like obvious. You'd be like, yeah, something a little down with her. But it can be in the background, and you can look all handsome or beautiful or pretty sitting there, and people are like, no, she looks fine, he looks fine. Yeah, but if the flutter in the background would come forward, it would eat your lunch. That's that thing where we have to check and go, I better give the anxiety thing a check. I better try to get to the root of where this thing is. There's a root here. What is the message in the anxiety that you feel? I want you to think about this. See, we're counseling right now. At the same time, we're processing within yourself. You're going to do a self-assessment. What is the message? If it is, I don't know why, I just feel anxiety. Yes, what's the message that's coming to you? Is it saying you're not enough? Is it saying there's something wrong with you? Is it saying it's only a matter of time? Only a matter of time for what? I don't know, but it's only a matter of time. Is it saying someone else is going to leave? This is only going to last so long? People who move from place to place will have this flutter in the background that just goes, yeah, this is only going to last so long. I've already been here 6 months. Probably going to be, it's about time. Somebody's going to kick me out. Somebody's going to get rid of me. I'm going to get rid of me. I'll sabotage something, but it's about time. It's about time because that flutter in the background. So at the voice of anxiety, at the sensation of anxiety, what is at the root? Because if you don't grab a hold of that, you'll grab a hold of anxiety, and it's a wrestling match. I'm not going to be afraid. Yes, you are. I'm not going to be. And you're just going to wrestle. You wrestle all night with anxiety. Get up the next day exhausted, wrestle again. Because you're wrestling the wrong part. When we go to fight the fight of faith, we find the thing we're supposed to be fighting and pop it one. Because it's like, there you are, I see you. Or the root of it is another way of saying it, and pull it out so it quits growing. Because you'll get the sensation first, which will cause a flight, fight, or freeze thing. This is all reactionatory. This is all how you're going to react to what you felt. If you feel this and you let it go, we're going to move into some of this stuff right here. No, I don't do those things. Yeah, you do. Anyone who's in anxiety, you can be at your best, but if you're freaking out, you're in fear, and fear is not of God. So something argumentative, escape, isolate, something's going to happen with you that's going to be the reaction from this anxiety. So what's at the base? Sometimes people have a secret addiction, and they're afraid they're going to be found out. So we live to the best that we can up front, knowing that eventually, in the background, the flutter is, someone's going to find out. We breathe different. Somebody's going to find out. Oh, here comes so-and-so. He's a pretty good reader of people. I just got it. They're probably going to find out. Right? And it can be something that you did that you never resolved before God. I had something where it was like somebody's going to find out. It was in 4th grade. It was crazy. The Lord took me back to a memory in 4th grade. So I had this flutter, and I was like, I got to get rid of this. So I'm thinking about everything that's going on right now. No, that don't bother me. That don't bother me. That don't bother me. It was the craziest thing. There was something from 4th grade that was still speaking. And it was kind of that feeling like, yeah, it's about time this is going to happen. And I turned to it and said, shut up. This is not what's real. This is what's real. And I started to deal with that. I didn't deal with I'm not going to be anxious. I'm not going to be anxious. I'm not going to be anxious. Please don't let me do any of these things. I got to watch all my behavior. No, I just went and pulled that sucker out by the root and said, I see you. There you are. You got a crazy thought. That's not even reality. Right? And then I talk about it with somebody. Here's the crazy thought I had. This is what it is. And I call a spade, and I say, this is the thought. And it came from 4th grade. And this is the message it gave me. And I'm choosing now not to believe the message. If you don't do that next part, it's very difficult to stay convinced within yourself. Because you'll be like, I found you. You're not true. And then later you go, or are you? And it's like, bum, 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 shriek, shriek, shriek. And it starts happening in your head, then it'll start it all over again. But when you confess to another person and you say, this is a crazy thought. I'm not talking about at the altar, crawling your eyes. I'm just saying, I just need you to know this. There's a part of my brain that actually thinks that this is what's going to happen, and I'm saying no to it. Yeah. And once you get it out and you hear that, it gives your brain a reality check, like, oh, so I can't play that card in the game of life? Huh? No, you can't. We don't use the joker. Right? In the card game of life, we're not using the joker. Get out. But then you've grabbed a hold of the anxiety. If you're not aware of yourself enough to do that, you're just maybe aware that you have anxiety. Maybe. You might just think you have an addiction problem. Well, that's the bigger umbrella way up here. Well, I have an addiction problem. Yeah, well, what does that mean? Well, that I'm addicted to something. Then we say, well, what's your drug of choice? Right? And then you say, well, it's this, this, or this. And sometimes people say all of the above. Okay. So no, but what's the addiction problem? Well, I just told you. It was heroin, it's pot, it's what. No, but what's caused the addiction problem? Right? Let's get to really what we're talking about is something that's making you anxious. Even partying to have fun, if you really dig through the layers on that, there's a base belief that says, because if I don't, I'll be left out. Because if I don't, I won't be popular. Because if I don't, how will I have fun? There's no other way to have fun. See, there's some kind of crazy thought that's like 3rd grade material. It's like a kid would come up with it, like, here's a reason, It's usually not an adult thought. Our adult thinking would be like, well, I don't want to say that to just anybody because that's a stupid thought. I'll believe it, but I'm not going to actually say it to some other adult because they'll be like, what? I party so that I can make friends. I party so that I can be able to communicate. That's 3rd grade material. And it's based in anxiety. I won't be accepted, though. I'm not going to be accepted. They're not going to want me. I'll be on the outside. I'll be the odd one. I'll be stupid. I'll be whatever. That's what makes it really difficult in a spot where, you say you feel lonely, you're anxious, something's going on in your family or whatever, and someone asks you to come to, hey, why don't you guys come over and have a few beers or whatever. We're right there because we want that change and we want that acceptance. It's kind of wild, though, that it usually doesn't have the same effect if I say, why don't you come on out to church where we can meet with God who created you, who says be anxious for no thing, and he will give you the power to be anxious for no thing. And he'll take you to the root of the problem and pull the root out. Why don't you come on over? I got stuff. This is like, it's hard. It's just hard, right? But you'll be right there for the party, right there. Because there's a belief system built in the anxiety. And there's an anxiety when it comes to God. If you're living in anxiety in the world without God, when you go to approach God, you're not going to be like, I fully trust him. I just wasn't doing it for all this time. And now suddenly I just do. And I'm comfortable with people praying with me. And no, you ain't going to trust nothing. So then it makes it really difficult to get to the place we need to be, because at the base of that anxiety, it's there to drive us. So fight and flight, even freeze to a certain degree, is being driven. And there's a difference between being driven or directed. So here's another way you can know when it's anxiety. Something's just like, a slave, like you're a slave, and there's a taskmaster going, get moving. You got to get this done by this time. It's got to go blah, 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 blah. Anytime you are driven, it's not of our Father's kingdom. Anytime. God never drives his people. He only directs. So remember that as a rule. It's like, it can be the thing you're supposed to do that you're anxious about. Well, I got to get to work because I got to pay bills. Well, why can't you just go to work? Why is there an anxiety? But I gotta, something's driving you. Something's at the base there that's saying you must go do this and you must do it now. Who's talking? Fear. Fear. And at the base of fear, there's some kind of storyline that's saying, yeah, well, if you don't make that money, you're going to be a loser. She'll leave you. He'll leave you. The kids will think you're worthless. Your parents will say, grandma will be disappointed. I mean, there'll be some kind of thing rather than like, I'm getting up today and going to work because it's the right thing to do. And I'm just doing it very factual. I don't need to be driven, right? I'm just directed. This is where I'm supposed to be, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get up and go to work. It's a great way to go to work, but if you're like this all the way to work, and you're anxious about the whole thing, and your thought patterns are saying anytime you're going to lose the job, and I don't know how long I can hold on to this, and we better get it together, you're being driven. You're not being directed. See it? If you just think you're a crabby person, right? I'm just always combative in argument. I don't know why. I've just always been that way. You're an anxious person. There's very few people in this life who are just born mean. You were born feeling anxiety, and this is supposed to protect you. This is that sign out front, right, that says, back off. Leave me alone. I'm taking control. You come in too close, I'll pop you one with a statement physically, however you're going to do it, with a dirty look, with some kind of hurtful thing. Get back. Stay away. That's all anxiety. Well, you look at a person and you think, oh, I just thought they were mean. I thought they were a jerk. Well, most jerks are full of anxiety. It can become very vindictive almost because we're mad that we've had to live in this fear for so long. And it seems like everyone else is happy and we're pissed about it. Just going to say it how it is. We're mad. See it? So, we have to take a look at ourselves right now. Right now. What is the voice of the fear that you might feel? Think about your worst fear and what's the voice behind that. What's it telling you? We're going to sit here for just a little bit. I believe the Holy Spirit's going to point out some things to you, just like He did me. If you see yourself in any of these, even doing it one time, if you can see yourself in any of this, then we know for sure there's this going on, anxiety. Which means there's a message there. What is the message? Because they're tied around fear is a lie. It's never the truth, it's a lie. God never uses this kind of fear to tell us anything. Fear is not of God. That's how we know. It's a great Bible verse to memorize. It's short, but it is so strong. Fear is not of God. So if there's something at the base, that's the thing we got to get at. Who here feels like you're on a timer? And if you don't, you're being driven because there's some type of timer in your life that you're like, this has got to get done now. If I don't, yeah? Timers? Who else? There's a timer. And so what we have to do is identify what is at the base of that timer. Why am I being driven by a timer? Now, there might be a law or there might be something that you have to have, pay your taxes by such and such a date, or something like that. Well, that puts a timer to something. But this is different. This is that driving feeling that just says, get it. You got to think about it. You got to be the answer to it. You got to figure it out. You better figure it out. You better figure it out. Right? So I just bring that one up because at the base, each of you that raised your hand will have a different reason why you feel driven to that timer. When you put it on God's time, it changes everything. And it's a crazy feeling inside you. I ain't doing any more than what He tells me to do today. This is what I feel like I'm supposed to do today. I'm going to do the next right hard thing. That's what I'm doing. And everything inside of you will scream, that is not enough. You better lose sleep. You better do something. You got to worry about this. You got to think. It'll send something. And underneath all of that, I'm just trying to teach you how to find it. There's a message. The message might say, I've never been enough. I never succeed. I can't handle the thought of not succeeding. This is the time. I got to really make sure. Right? And what I've done in those kinds of things is I've dispelled the lie with the truth. It's not really important that I succeed. It's important that I do the will of God. And however that turns out, not my issue. It's really, because your soul is tied to the worry. And when you try to pull away from it, you go, not my issue. It's like a contorting, like you're just being ripped. Because you'll say it, but you really don't believe it. It's not my issue. Except for if it is my issue. I still feel like it is my issue. I got to get done by a certain time. I got to shut it. And then I will do certain things that'll be the opposite. You know what? Then I'm not doing that tonight. I'm on a timer. Lord, you want me to still do that certain thing? You'll wake me in the morning and I'll get up and do it then. Good night. I'll do completely the opposite, so my subconscious has to freak out. It'll just be like, well, you can't just, because I'm going to bed. Right? I've done that with chores, around the house or whatever, where it's like, got to go. And you find yourself, you're picking up stuff. And because got to get this done. And then we got to get that out in the mail. And we got to do, oh, my goodness, I got a counseling at this. And all of a sudden, I'll catch myself like, what am I doing? That is not good for the body. Right? So then I have to speak out loud and say, because I am that person who used to make the lines on the carpet just right. When you're vacuuming, like, Don't anybody walk in there. It looks cool. There's a comforting feeling when the lines are just, like, yeah. But, as I don't got the lines right now. And so at the same time, I'm picking priorities and I'm saying, I will get to that. The Lord wants me to get to that, but I am not going to be driven to it. And if I have to go, good night, shut the light off or whatever, and this is my phrase when it comes to dishes and things like that. And I'm not talking about being irresponsible. I'm talking about driving yourself crazy to be responsible, right? You've got to switch some things around. There's certain priorities. It shouldn't live like that all the time. But what I'm saying is just being able to say, it's all going to burn one day anyway. That's my line, right? Right? And my husband and I, when we mow lawns, it's like we got to get it. And it's on a certain day, and sometimes rain upsets that and throws off our schedule or whatever. And you can get into the mindset of like, got to be done. Wow, we didn't get to do, because you're trying to fit it in there or whatever. And it's like, well, okay, now a couple dandelions are hanging out. Oh, well, right? Anxiety will drive you to do nothing at all, or it'll drive you to perfectionism. And guess what perfectionism can do? Drive you to do nothing at all. Your brain is only going to engage if you can do it perfectly, or it won't engage at all. So some people that everything looks messy and it's all hoarding and it's all whatever, they're actually perfectionists where their brain has just broke because they thought about every little thing and now they just can't do it anymore, and they give up. Yeah? Yes? Yeah. But see, here's how I think. Perfectionism and anxiety would be performance, right? And so I come over and you'll be like, let me show you the apartment. This is our new comforter, and this is how I made the bed. And I don't care about any of that. Now, if it turned into a hoarding mess or whatever, then I'd be like, oh, this could be dangerous to you, But taking your life story, for instance, I should automatically see your life story. You just did something really huge. You had really huge life changes that took place, right? So if your bed's not made, yeah. Oh, yeah. But you brought all your clothes back, you do all that. That's what I'm talking about. So who made the rule? Who is that rule maker that said it had to be perfect in this amount of time? That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. 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 That's right. I'd rather have her look at how well taken care of she is, right? Yeah. Correct. And then you find balance. Then you'll come into the time like, all right, it's time to clean this and get it. But you're not driven, you're directed. But if you take on the driven part, you'll sit there and you'll look around, you'll be like, oh my Lord, how am I going to do all this? Right? Well, find your zone of balance and do something. And then go to bed. And then get up and do something else. Right? Don't make it an all or nothing. That's just an example of being driven or being directed. Yeah. Yeah. So what's the sensation that goes through you if it isn't? Do you get angry? If somebody prevents that from happening? Yeah. Habit's different. Habit's like, oh, yeah. 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 So how many of you have, if you walk into a totally disarrayed room, you feel like you can't breathe? Right? So like you raised your hand, so that means your goal is not to leave the stuff on, packed up. It's going to be eventually to put it away, and you'll go in that room and you'll be like, oh, I feel really good about that. That feels really good. But there's something about eye clutter that just gets to be like, because your brain actually will record everything you have to do when you're looking at it. I need to dust that. I need to move that. That doesn't belong there. Why are the toys here? And that'll happen. You just walked into the room. Hi, honey. You home from work? Yeah. Yeah. It takes it all in, right? And it can even be halfway clean, but just have too much of stuff sitting around, and your brain will just go like, I can't think about all this, right? I just can't. It's too much. And so there's ways to take that down. So less is more is a good thing to look into too. But we have to look at a base of anything where you feel driven. I got to get a job right now. Why? Is it the time for you to? Are you in a spot of healing? Well, I don't want to take long to heal. What's your problem? If you have the opportunity to heal, heal. Right? You know, some of you have gone into treatment and out of treatment or whatever, and it's like we feel guilty or driven by taking care of ourselves. It's just wrong. It just gives me anxiety. I know I'm going to get in trouble because I cared about me. Who taught you that? Well, I'm just being selfish. Really? Really? Because if you don't take care of yourself pretty soon, you're going to be dead. That's how it is for some people. So it's a driving thing one way or another. And whatever drives you in anxiety will drive you to addiction. Sometimes addiction is hating yourself. When we say the word addiction, we're always looking for a drug. It can be, I'm just in the habit, I'm addicted to hating myself. Well, stop it. I can't. Yeah, that's an addiction. Right? So when you come here on Wednesday nights, it's not just, and I don't want to use the word just wrongly, but it isn't only about addictive properties like heroin or whatever. It's you can be addicted in harming yourself, about thinking less of yourself, about asking too much of yourself. I mean, because what is addiction really? It's anxiety that causes us to be out of balance. Sobriety means to be well balanced. Right? We're flying our plane like we're supposed to. We're not flying it like this. We're flying it like this. And so when you come off of any form of drug, you are flying like this. No, I'm 5 days clean. So your plane is still like this. It's going to take you a while to bring it, right? And then there's times of turbulence. Right? My husband flies plane, and you got those Cessnas, your two-people thing, you're in it, and he's coming through turbulence. You've got to adjust. So your balance is getting adjusted. Whoa, okay, start a new job. By starting a new job, And when I wrote it the first time, I think I shared this here with my husband, and we were just in a spot headed to a conference, I think it was. I don't know, because it all became a blur because I got so sick on that plane. There was turbulence, and it's a two-seater. You feel everything. So you're like, and I'm just trying to be all impressive with him and looking out the window knowing I'm going to throw up, but where do you throw up? And it's like, he's like, so you're enjoying it? Is this good? And I'm like, yeah, this is really great. And I just chucked all over the place, and he's just handing me stuff like, here you go. And he keeps flying the plane, and you just feel great about yourself when you get out of the plane. You're like, that was a good experience. But that's what it feels like when you go through turbulence in life while you're trying to stay balanced. So going back to her apartment, I'm coming to your apartment right now. This is what I know. Before treatment, right? Clean, 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 clean. Oh, all of a sudden there's a problem, and it's not so clean, no. Then you go and you make a priority and you say, hold on, this is out of control, this is unmanageable, I got to go take care of that, right? And so then you're going to come back and try to figure out in that balance, how do I get the plane to do this? Because I'm taking off again, and there's a lot of turbulence. So give yourself some grace. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But in the middle of all that, I'm proud of you. Yeah. That's right. So see, we say things like this out loud. The reason you say these things out loud is to give yourself permission to do something different. Like me saying, it's all going to burn one day anyway. Shut the door, walk away. Right? Right? Now you can say that forever. Now you're neglecting it. That's, no. But I just give myself permission, like, this is not a high priority. And my husband gives himself by this permission. 100 years from now, when I'm dead and gone, will this thing have mattered? Puts everything into it, like, well, probably not. I don't need to do this right now. Right? So he measures it like wisdom is panoramic, and that's what God operates in. He just looks, 100 years from now, will it really matter if we mow the lawn on Wednesday or Thursday? Does it really? Why is it such a big stinking deal right now? So you give yourself permission to walk away from it. And then when you engage it because I was directed to. Nobody's pushing me around. My thoughts aren't pushing me around. I'm engaging this. I'm mowing the lawn. I'm cleaning the room right now because I have decided this is the moment. Whatever it is, make sure you rein it back so it's not pushing you, that you can do it in a directed way where you're like, no, I'm making a decision. This is what I'm going to do. So the caged animal, the tiger in the pen, right? The paces and looks back and forth. So that's the fight. When you feel trapped, that's another one. That'll make you feel driven. You're trapped. I can't find a way out. We got to do. But the fight will be that tiger in the cage. Flight will be the monkey in the cage. Can't stick to one spot. We are up here on this branch, down, over, in, you're throwing poop, whatever we're doing. You know, that's the monkey in the cage. This is the tiger in the cage. So which one are you? Right? This is the deer in the headlight. This is danger in a way of like, help me get off the road. Help me, the car's coming. Help me, I can't even move. This is when we have to say, help. If you can't do anything at all, say help. All of them need help, but this person right here in freeze needs the most. So are you the tiger, the monkey, or the deer in the headlight? All of the above, yeah. So if you can assess yourself like that, that's like saying, I have this much work to do then. It isn't like you're just calling something and now it's not going to have any effect. No, it's going to require all of those different things to be dealt with. Find the anxiety at the base of each one of them, because in one area you're froze. What's the anxiety and what's the message behind it? In another area you're in flight. What's the anxiety? What's the message behind it? Then we have to be able to identify. You grab a hold of that. All three of them? Yeah. Yeah. Now, depending on drug of choice or backgrounds or how much anxiety your parents had and what was passed down to you and how you deal with anxiety, when you're jumping through all three of those, that can have a long-term effect. And it is like driving a car definitely at 100 miles an hour trying to decide when you turn. Where another person might be dealing with anxiety and they're driving 30 miles an hour and they know eventually they have to turn. Right? This is like, I'm trying to find the road, you know. Well, yeah, you're going a little too fast. So the point is, we have to get this slowed down. The anxiety has to slow down. We have to learn different ways to get the body to be in that spot. And definitely stay away from any stimulants. Right? We don't need coffee when we're already like this. Coffee is a driver. Coffee is a driver. It's like, I'm already being driven. I got to do something. So let's pour a bunch of stuff into us that will drive us more. Monster drinks, horrible. Just dealt with a young person. Just one panic attack after the next. And, you know, you're trying to find the core of what horrible thing happened. Monster drinks. Yeah. So what happens is when you come up, you go way up, and it brings you to a place, it burns off all kinds of sugars in your body, and then when you come down, you are a hypoglycemic and just a crabby person. Right? So we better take you back up, and then you'll go back down. And then so people go, well, I can't afford to come down, so we're just going to stay up. Well, your body will adapt, and after a pot of coffee, you're going to need more, so then you're going to have to do something else, and it's bad. It can actually be a gateway drug, and you'll go out and use meth because you can't stay up long enough, and you hate the feeling of being down. It's like, I can't think. I feel foggy. I can't think. See what I mean? So just knowing that, back it off. You know, if you're a pot-a-day person, try to bring it down to 2 cups and not before you go to bed. And watch. You think between sugar and caffeine, you think heroin was something. You watch the withdrawals when you're going through trying to stay away from caffeine, and people vomit. There's all kinds of different things that take place. And we'll be like, I don't know why I'm not feeling good. Yeah, you're detoxing. It's that big a deal. Make sense? So the whole thing tonight, we're going to pray here at the end here and ask God to show us the root. Where are we being driven? Because if we can grab a hold of those areas and give ourselves permission to be directed and not driven, it'll prevent these manifestations from taking place. If you don't allow yourself, I'm not going to triangulate. I'm not going to get aggressive. I'm not going to be controlling. I'm not going to be argumentative. I'm not running. I'm not going to hide. No, I'm not lying to this person. No, I'm not going to isolate. No. Well, that's great. We need to identify that. We can say no to it, but if we don't get at the root, we'll be driven to do these things anyway. So the power is in grabbing the root. So let's stand. Father, we just come before you in the name of Jesus, and we thank you that you are a God of revelation. You're going to show us all the areas that we have a lie speaking, and we want the truth to replace that lie. We want areas, Lord, that people have spoken things into our life that have caused an anxiety that we've been living by. It could be our own grandma saying, you kids need to do such and such, or you won't amount to anything. I mean, whatever it is that's at the base of that anxiety, God, we are asking you reveal the lie to us now. And Father, show us when we enter fight, flight, or freeze. If it gets away on us, where we can grab a hold of our emotional state so we're not manifesting all of these things were written here and some that weren't. We love you, Lord. Thank you for revelation knowledge. There's power in the understanding. In Jesus' name. Let's go out with a song thank you all for coming.